Okay, you may see some reflection of my lights on my glasses, but it is so hard to do these videos without my glasses. I'm way too blind for that. So if I'm putting my head down, because I don't have a good ring light set up just yet to avoid that. But one day. But yes, I have a different outfit on. It's a little cold, different spot. We moved around my bedroom a bit, so it's actually more convenient for my gaming husband, but it works for me too making these videos. All right, so we're back. We're back after my hiatus. We are on to week number 4, which is very similar to week number 3, but a little bit more is going on. So you should definitely take a test by now, especially if you're paying attention. Obviously, there's some people that genuinely don't know they're getting pregnant, so this is not necessarily when you'll have a missed period. That's next week, so this might be the week that you're wondering where that period is, and you are questioning if it's going to be late or not. Or you are paying attention and you know that if you don't get your period, you should be taking a test, because no matter what, you're going to pass that test if you're pregnant this week, especially where your HCG is at. This week, the amniotic sac is officially being made around baby, which is technically still an embryo. It's going from blastocyst to embryo, and that amniotic sac is kind of a key factor in that. That's where baby's going to have cushion to grow, they urinate in, it's a protective barrier for baby. So it's very important that now we're no longer a group of cells, we're turning into this embryo that's eventually going to turn into the fetus. So the body has accepted the embryo, and now they want to cushion that and protect it. And then once that embryo is now formed because of the amniotic sac, now your fetus is starting to grow. And the biggest thing, it's essentially the human parts are officially growing. It's not just a group of cells. These are parts of the body like organs. They're starting now. First things first, though, is it starts with the nervous system and the head. Those are the biggest things outside of the necessary things for a fetus to grow, which is the sac, the placenta, and the umbilical cord. During this time, embryo is dividing into 2 parts. So we've gone from blastocyst to embryo with an amniotic sac growing. Once that embryo is there, it's dividing into 2 parts. One part's going to placenta, other part's going to baby. All within this amniotic sac. And they're called the hypoblast and the epiblast are the 2. Hypo, epi. And this is a week that, especially if you're doing IVF, especially if you've had miscarriages or stillbirths in the past, and having fertility issues in general, that you really want to pay attention to. This is a very intense week, the first trimester, and it's a very high chance for miscarriage due to the simplest of things, because so much is so vulnerable at this point with baby. So this is definitely a week to take it easy. Even if you normally exercise, normally do this, normally do that, really just this week especially, just take it slow. Let your body do what it's trying to do, especially if you have that missed period and you know that you more than likely are pregnant, or you've taken a test and you're pregnant. Week 4 is one of those intense weeks, and this, not that the first couple weeks aren't, but this is now, you really need the implantation, which is a high week for miscarriage to happen. And now these things are dividing, and the blastocyst to the embryo with that amniotic sac. The corpus luteum is still there, which eventually turns into the cord, but that is rapidly growing, so it turns into the umbilical cord, so that corpus luteum doesn't need to be there anymore. Huge amounts of hormones are surging through you, progesterone, estrogen, HCG, to make all of these things happen, because so much growth especially happens in the very beginning and the very end of pregnancy, which is why those are the 2 hardest trimesters to go through. The end is kind of for, the last tail end of growth, and the beginning is the main organs, and everything's dividing where it needs to go so that that embryo can turn into a fetus and start to grow into one. But because of that, not having the right hormone ratio, anything that is off, doing too much exercise, all of these things can really affect that. And some people are lucky and they have no idea. I was one of those people both pregnancies. The first pregnancy I didn't even know until my second missed period. And my second pregnancy with my twins, I knew first period, and that week 3 for me, I started to get nauseous. In week 4, I didn't have my period, and I knew. And I was really, really starting to feel the changes, and it's the same kind of changes like you have been feeling or can be feeling. But I feel like week 4 and 5, week 4 to 6 is really when anyone, no matter who they are, you're going to start feeling side effects of pregnancy because of the hormone surge between week 4 to 6, which is also when embryo is at its most vulnerable, because so much important things are happening during that hormone surge. And the thing that sucks about it is if you don't have the right hormone surge, this isn't going to work very well. So, like I had said, the corpus luteum is, I probably am saying that wrong, but it is what is, during implantation, is connecting the blastocyst to your uterine wall and to your blood vessels, so that your body is starting to give this baby nutrients, and waste is able to leave as well. Eventually that turns into the umbilical cord rather quickly. That happens in the first, it actually happens in the first couple months, but first trimester for sure. And that is really happening right now. The outer layer of the blastocyst, that's what those group of cells immediately start to form and do once implantation is hit. And again, lots of hormones, that has to happen. And another thing that I think is very funny, and something I didn't actually know until I recently did the research for this week, which I felt like I knew so much about, specifically the first trimester, is when this process is happening, vulnerable, everything isn't formed fully yet, to, essentially feed the baby, the nutrients. And once the amniotic sac is formed, it actually immediately forms a yolk sac for the embryo, for extra nutrients during this time, because so much is happening. It needs so much more energy to be able to, rapidly divide and grow. It needs energy in order to do that. And your body is giving a lot, but it needs that extra and your body naturally, once the baby is formed and divides, will divide that amniotic sac into a yolk sac, knowing it needs extra. And essentially, eventually it goes away because, the corpus luteum and the umbilical cord are formed, and there's a nice flow going through from your blood vessels, and the body has fully recognized pregnancy and accepted that. So that can kind of go away. But until then, it's still there, and it's essentially the way my brain connected it is that the baby eats it, essentially. And they don't really eat it. It just helps form to the umbilical cord and eventually the reproductive systems, which pretty much makes sense because that's your waste. And sometimes, like I had said, some people, they don't necessarily feel it around 4 weeks. Some people feel it later. My first pregnancy with my singleton, I feel like I didn't really actually feel it until 6 to 8 weeks. I didn't really have any symptoms, which is probably why I ignored that I had and I also had a light period for my first missed period. I had some bleeding, and I think that's why I didn't actually know I was pregnant, let alone I wasn't trying. My second time I wasn't trying, but it was working, and then it was a surprise again. But I will say the second time with the twins, who knows if that makes a difference. My HCG was nothing higher than it normally would be during any of my blood tests finding out I was pregnant. I had no idea until my ultrasound. But I did feel, like I said, week 3 to 4, I started to feel kind of nauseous, kind of off. Something just didn't feel right. It was not normal PMS for me. And then I had missed my period. And the following week, week 5, was when I really felt the nausea, and it was intense nausea after that for me, which I did have with my first as well. I had very intense nausea and heartburn, and this is kind of that time that you can start to feel it, and if you don't, it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It's just the way that your body is adjusting to a foreign object inside of it. of pregnancy being started, these huge hormone surges, all of those things. It's the way your body reacts. That's all it is. I mean, it's a lot for your body. And like I said, the first trimester and the second trimester is the most energy, the most hormone surges, the most work kind of being done, and your body is paying the price for that. And so that's why you're feeling all of these symptoms and feelings, is because your body knows not to get rid of the baby, but it's like, whoa, I feel absolutely terrible. What do I do? And that's how it digests that. And something to, sleep more. That's all you can do. You have a lot of energy going on. Sleep extra, listen to your body. Not the time to get into crazy exercise. If you're able to do it like you normally do, great. If you've never been doing it before, first trimester is not the time to be doing it. Especially not until you really start to feel yourself again. The biggest thing is to be listening to your body. Number one thing to help with nausea, small meals. There is these awesome things out in the world that are these literal nausea, like cough drops, nausea drops, I guess you'd call them, because they're not cough drops. Lozenges, that's the word I was thinking of. And they were, holy cow, changed the game. I also got sugared ginger. For me, did taste horrible, but I will say was an instant fix for nausea. I don't think I could ever eat straight ginger, but it really is just the ginger itself. The sugar around the outside was like a little bit easier to ingest, and it was like, but by the third trimester, I was numb to it. I hate ginger now, but ginger was very helpful. Ginger teas, staying hydrated, eating small, bland foods. Even though you feel like shit, you really need to eat, because eating is going to just counteract the whole entire process. Rice. And that was another thing, is filling yourself. Even though you're feeling like crap, you really should try to fill your belly, because that will help. Protein, like nuts, yogurt, trying to get it through that, versus sometimes meats are a little bit harder to digest and a little bit of a struggle to get down when you're this nauseous. So things like I said, nuts and yogurt, so you're still getting a lot of protein, are very helpful. And then rice, pasta, grains are great because they're filling you, and they're fibrous, they're not too bad for your bellies. And if you can get some greens and fruits, that's even better. Again, these are nutrients that you need in your body, and they're going to really, really help you feel better as a whole, let alone if you can hold them down, even better. But it's really listening to your body this week, especially with those kinds of things. So that's everything for week 4. And sorry about my glare on my glasses, but again, my blind self cannot handle it anymore. But if you have any questions or any comments, comment below. Thanks, guys.